You need an API. And let people interact with that API. Don't give me Helm. Give me an API. It's not your problem how I'm going to interact with it. I just need it. That's all I need.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 276. Why APIs matter more than ever. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darin and Viktor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darin reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Viktor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darin Pope and Viktor Farsic.
This is a follow-up from our episode number 266, where we were talking about pickle and KCL and Q. I'm going to look at my notes real quick. In that episode, you said, Viktor, if our configurations are so complicated, then maybe there is a problem in our configurations in the first place. But that would occupy a whole other podcast. This is that podcast. So why did you say that? Again, it's been a while since we recorded that one, so again, context. Pickle, KCL, Q, big configurations, maybe small configurations, but if our configurations are so complex, that could be a problem. Why is that a problem?
Depends actually on the persona, whether it's a problem or no, right? So let's say when you interact with AWS, you want to create S3 bucket. Doesn't matter which tool you use, right? You're going to define it in something. ACL, JSON, YAML, right? You have at your disposal, 100 different parameters that you can use to create S3 bucket. And there is a good reason to have 100 different parameters. And the reason is that AWS wants to give you all the options that matter to you, but also anybody else that might use it. It's catered to the needs of many. And that might be okay with you, right? Because you're an expert. You know AWS inside out. You live and dream S3 buckets. But what if you are not that person? What if you are the person that doesn't need all those options? What if you're a person that, and even within specific options, what if you're a person that doesn't need all the sub-options? Let's say the size, right? What if, I don't know, there is infinite number of sizes of, let's say, VMs in AWS. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that you, an expert, decided that here are the 5 sizes that in our company are used. And now, if you put yourself in the shoe of somebody else, somebody who I just want storage. Just give me storage. Give me a VM. I don't want to deal with any of those things. If you're that person, that means that we need a different interface for you, right? We need to create some kind of interface that will give you what you need, instead of allowing you to gracefully get confused and lost. That's a common problem with Kubernetes, right? That Kubernetes is designed to be very, very, very low level, right? We have something like a deployment and a service and ingress and storage and service mesh and this, right? Many, many different things. And then you go to a normal person and says, I want an application. That's what I want. Give me an application, right? You have a couple of options in front of you, right? One option is to say, yeah, just define yourself, deployment, service, and ingress, and service mesh, and this and that. And then that person is going to go crazy. Kind of like, I don't have half a year to figure it out. Almost nobody does that these days. But what people do is then create some kind of abstractions, let's say Helm chart, and I'm using Helm chart only as an example, that do nothing really, nothing special. They just convert that complexity into the same level of complexity, but with if-else statements and loops and conditionals and what's not, right? You're not solving the problem. The problem is that I need to be able to define whatever I'm supposed to define at a level that makes sense, that is meaningful to me. That's a problem, right? That's what we're really trying to solve. I want an application. And even if I define deployment, service, and ingress and what's not, then somebody else in a company is going to say, no, you know what? You cannot create a deployment with replicas because we use HPA. No, you just told me that I should deal with that complexity. The only solution is to say, okay, so here's the interface. Here's an API or CLI or whatever it is that has all the options that you're allowed to tinker with. All the options that make sense to you. That's the solution, right? And if that's the solution, then wrapping things up into a different format does not solve anything. Changing it from pure YAML to Helm does not change anything. Right? Or KCR, or Pickle, or anything you want. What does change is APIs. And I know I'm very biased on this subject, right? But I get constantly surprised how significant, most of the industry figured out the importance of APIs a long time ago. And there is a small pocket of us that still do not understand that, you need an API. And let people interact with that API. Don't give me Helm, give me an API. And it's not your problem how I'm going to interact with it. I just need it. That's all I need. I forgot your question, so if I'm completely off the topic, you need to stop this and start over again.
It's almost like we were revisiting a couple of episodes ago where we were talking about the XY problem. We have big, long configurations that are Kubernetes. I mean, by the time you look at a real configuration file, the effective configuration file, those things can be huge and long.
Hundreds of thousands, even for a simple thing.
Simple. And then let's make it simple. Let's go and make it to Helm. No, that's not the answer. It could be the answer, but probably not the answer most of the time.
It's not the answer simply because how long has it been since industry seriously started considering HTTP APIs as a thing? 15 years?
Let's see, 2024, at least, let's say 20 years, because here's the reason why. When did AWS start?
Yes.
2005?
Exactly.
Roughly. So we're pushing 20 years easily?
Exactly. And probably even more. Kind of like, if you go outside of the resource management area, right? Front end talks to an API. You expose what you need. There you go.
Actually, let's go even further back. Remember when we had, XHR request from the browser back to a backend?
XAR. Ooh,
XHR.
No. XHR.
Ajax calls.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ajax,
Say
right?
Ajax, man.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was for a second. I mean, now you're talking late 90s?
Exactly. What happened, the important change that happened is that since after that, I'm going to say 20 years ago, I'm throwing a random number, right? We more or less all agreed the common format to build those APIs, which is HTTP these days, right? Now, before it was a bit more complicated because there were like probably 20, 30 different competing formats. You don't know what you're going to choose. You don't know how you're going to do it. We need a bit of time maybe to stabilize. But hey, we're there already. Build a freaking API. That's all I'm asking. And don't tell me that you already have it because AWS is not built for you. It was built for everybody. And that's a big difference. Or Kubernetes, again, Kubernetes, not built for you. built to serve everybody's needs. And the only way you can serve everybody's needs is to put it at the lowest possible level you can. That's the only way.
I'll go back to the question, because yes, we've gone way off from the question. If our configurations are so complicated, then maybe there is a problem in our configurations in the first place. So let's go back to the Kubernetes example. We have a 100-line, 1,000-line Kubernetes manifest. And we're applying it using kube control. As we learned, that's the correct way to pronounce it.
There you go.
But what's happening when we say kube control apply YAML file? What's happening?
Each of those resources in those thousands of lines of YAML are sent one by one to Kubernetes API.
Over
HTTP. Exactly. Actually, they're transformed into JSON and then sent to API, but that's now already a detail that is not that important, right?
But talk about complexity right there, though. The people that wrote the Kubernetes API ingest JSON, but how is everything freaking configured? YAML. Really?
One of the sentences that I've been repeating like a parrot for a while now is the following. Complexity belongs to the server, not to the client. Even from the mainframe days. That was true when we had mainframes. It's true still today. Whatever is complex, you put it on a server. Expose what is supposed to be exposed to a user, just as to the end user going to your shopping site, you're exposing things that matter to that person, right? Do the same thing for developers. That's all I'm asking. Treat them the same as your customers.
Because they are your customers, whether you like it or not?
They should be your customers. They aren't customers necessarily. I think that's the big difference of how companies treat them, right? I don't work for you, right? You just ask me something, and if I'm in a good mood today, I'm going to give it to you because of the goodness of my heart, right? Not because I work for you, but yeah, you work for a customer. Everybody does. Or should be.
Let's assume for a moment we're able to go down and start thinking customer first.
What does your customer need? What would your customer buy from you? That's a valid question, no matter whether we're talking about external users, internal users. What can you sell successfully to a customer? Figure it out, right? If that's a developer, I can sell you a way how you can define the application in an easy way. Excellent. Try it out. Give it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. See how it goes. See how much they like it or no. Willingly. And that's the important part, willingly. And you take it from there. You're selling something. Everybody's selling something.
We're selling something.
Yeah.
We're selling a podcast, right? We're trying to add value so people keep coming back every week to listen.
Exactly.
I want to stick with your or no that you threw in when you were talking there. If people are receiving feedback and they only accept the positive feedback and they ignore what would be considered as negative feedback. If I'm giving it to you, I'm just giving you feedback. I'm not considering it positive or negative. It's just feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I, as the vendor, if you will, as somebody producing something for a customer, I interpret it based on positive or negative to me. It's like, what do you mean you didn't like how I wrote that HTTP request handler?
Exactly. Or maybe no feedback. They're just moving away somewhere else. So the real question here is that, are you an actor operating in a free market or a monopoly market? Because depending on your answer to that question, you'll be treating customers differently, right? Again, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about software or anything else. Those are two, probably there are more, but two major differences how companies operate, how companies treat their customers, right? let me find an example of not free market, the DMV, right? Where you get license plates. I was fortunate to have to go there once, right? No competition, monopoly, right? They treat you horribly, right? You don't get what you need.
Well, you get what you do get what
Eventually.
you need eventually. Yes,
Eventually,
correct. You get it
exactly.
Eventually. It is eventually consistent. But I have heard stories of certain DMVs that people will show up, start the line 30 minutes before the doors open, but then the DMV people will come out 15 minutes before doors open and start asking people one by one, what are you here for today? What are you trying to solve? And people will start saying, oh, we can't help you here with that. You need to go to this other division. So instead of license plate, you actually get your driver's license. That's a different place that's not here. Or it's like, oh, you're trying to retitle a car for, you inherited a car. You're trying to retitle it. Okay, you need these 3 forms. Here they are. When you go inside, you're going to go to this one desk only. You'll go to station 4, and that's it. And then you can get in and out maybe in 10 or 15 minutes instead of spending 8, 10, coming back another day.
What I was referring is slightly different. Imagine that there is DMV2, right? Competing DMV. And you're not forced to go there. Because what is happening internally, and that's why I was referring to it as monopoly, right? We're going to do this thing. We're going to design this thingy that will enable you to manage your applications, just to say something. And you will have to use it. The problem is you have to, right? That's treating users as a monopoly, right? You have no other option, man. I have no incentive to make it better, and you have no way around it. If you would have competing, let's say, hey, you know what? You can use this thingy that I made that will deploy and manage application in AWS for you, or you can go directly to AWS. Then you will get the feedback. Even if feedback means no literal feedback, but nobody is using it, right? That's a feedback as well.
I guess on my monopoly side, I was thinking about even within the monopoly, you can have good experiences and bad experiences.
Of course, but it's less likely to have good experience because there is nothing bad experience. You're not punished by providing bad experience, right? I'm pretty sure that there are DMVs or whatever is the name, where you get license plates in states that are actually great, probably, right? And they're doing it differently. They're great. So being a monopoly does not mean that it's bad by default. It just means that it is less likely to be good if bad solutions are not punished. And when I say punished, I mean, hey, no customers.
But we have some friends that we want you to become their customers, and that's Barbaro Mojo. Are you ready to spice up your life while you wait in line at the DMV? Meet Barbaro Mojo, the delicious Cuban hot sauce with a kick that's sponsoring today's episode. Barbaro Mojo brings the heat with their unique Cuban marinade base, adding an unforgettable flavor to your favorite dishes. With flavors like El Habanero, Halibo, Panazzo, and Best Day Ever, there's a perfect match for everyone's taste buds. As a DevOps Paradox listener, you're entitled to an exclusive 25% discount on your first order. Just visit barbaromojo.com and use the promo code DevOps25, that's DevOps, the number 2, and the number 5 at checkout to claim your discount. Thanks to Barbaro Mojo for sponsoring today's episode. Now, let's talk about the monopoly a little bit differently. Let's assume a company believes they are a monopoly, but in reality, they're not. How's that going to play out?
Shadowing for infrastructure. It's going to play out by people wasting time on finding ways around you. And sometimes being successful in doing that. And sometimes being successful might actually mean unsuccessful for the company where they're working, right? Because, You might be saying, hey, I'm using this thingy to manage my applications, but in reality, I'm just telling you that. And now behind the scenes, I'm using Google Cloud Run because that's easier for me. And so it happens that it's insecure and then bad things happen, right? And usually companies create a monopoly. I'm going to continue using that term to prevent people from doing silly things without giving them the solutions they're looking for, just to prevent them from doing things. And that usually results in, hey, I'm cleverer than you. I know how to circumvent your prevention, right?
Until the bill shows up and now you're on the hook to pay for it.
Yeah. Company, not me.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not me.
But isn't this the problem, though? Sometimes we think we are a monopoly, when in reality we aren't. We're not sticking our head up above the sand to see that the landscape has changed.
That's the thing. You think you are, right? And you're not finding out that you are not precisely because you are. Because if nobody's allowed to go behind your back, then when people do go behind your back, they're not going to tell you that they're doing that. Because you're not allowed.
But it happens anyway.
But it happens anyway. Exactly.
I liked how you brought up Google Cloud Run and just sort of stepped away from it, going back to our earlier Kubernetes manifest chaos. Yes, Google Cloud Run is not Knative, but it is Knative compliant.
Yeah,
correct?
Same API.
Same API. If I just need to run an application, I don't need Kubernetes.
You might not need Kubernetes, let's put it that way.
Correct. I might not need Kubernetes. I just need to run my application. I have a single container image and I need to run that single container image. So now I'm able to use Google Cloud Run, a very simplified configuration compared to a standard Kubernetes manifest. Even though under the hood, even though we don't know what it is, I can guarantee you there's a lot more stuff going on based on that simple manifest that we're handing Google Cloud Run.
A better example could be Docker Compose. Why do people insist on using Docker Compose when we know that that's not how it's going to run in production? Why do you insist having something completely different than what is running in production? And the answer is very simple, because that thing in production, I'm not touching it even with a stick. That thing is horrible, right? For me as a developer, not necessarily for you, right? You're not giving me an option to have a sensible way to use the thing. What am I going to do? I'm going to spend my own time creating Docker Compose instead of using your thing. And everybody does, right? It's extremely successful. Even though I've been yelling all the time that, hey, we should locally run what we run in production, more or less. Nobody does that. Simply because nobody's getting something that is usable to them. When I say nobody, I don't mean nobody, but a significant number of us.
And it would be hard, probably, to take what your production Kubernetes configs are and run them locally. True or false?
Not necessarily. I mean, hard, yes. Hard meaning that it's harder than to do nothing. Yes. Doing something is always harder than doing nothing. Right? But going back to my previous statement, if you create an API, at the end of the day, I do not even care whether it's running locally. I couldn't care less. Going back to Google Cloud Run, it's easy. I don't have to run it locally. I can run it remotely. Again, I don't care. I just care that, hey, I want to run my application. That's the only thing I care. And you're giving me bells and whistles. You're giving me, this Helm template that has thousands of lines of something and then hundreds and hundreds of variables and what's not. I don't want that. That's what people are saying, and that's why they're going to Compose. And Compose is great. But then it's great for what you want to do on your machine. There is nothing can beat Docker Compose for running stuff on your machine as long as that is in isolation, right? That's what I need to develop my stuff, right? I don't know what's happening afterwards. And then people that are managing what's happening afterwards, they're saying, hey, and I don't care what's happening with you either, right? It's a typical story of siloed groups. I don't care what you do and you don't care what I do. And we are all going to do the same thing in a different way. And now tell me how efficient it is that we all do the same thing over and over again in a different way for no good reason.
There's zero efficiencies there, but budgets don't care about efficiencies.
They do, actually. Budgets care a lot about efficiencies. But budgets are split into the same groups. I have a budget for my development team. You have a budget for production. Your budget has nothing to do with my budget, and my budget has nothing to do with your budget, right? We are all extremely inefficient while trying to be very efficient within our tiny group.
Could we say that we're being efficiently inefficient?
Exactly.
Yes, I was sort of joking, but not really. Because we get $100 and we get $10 to 10 groups. And those 10 groups can spend the $10 however they want. But they're not going to pool and go to another group. It's like, hey, let's put our 10s together and let's have 20.
Exactly.
But that's not going to happen because management. They have their own little kingdom that they're trying to fund. Instead of thinking about the grandma that's trying to get something shipped so she can give her grandkids a birthday present.
I will go back to our previous episode and say the keyword context or a big picture, right? You need to understand the big picture. You need to work towards the big picture. You need to work towards the benefits of the company, not your group. You need to understand the context of the system, not of your tiny little piece of it. And the only way to do it, I mean, there are many things that need to change, but one of them is budget, yeah. Budget cannot be given to a group.
But if I can't have a budget for my group, how am I supposed to do work?
Actually, I'm going to take that back. You can have a budget. Let me put it this way. You don't need a budget. You need to earn your money. I can earn money by selling infrastructure services to developers. I'm earning money. I don't need a budget. I can earn money by selling to end users. You need to earn money. You cannot be given money.
Are you now saying that even within a company, we need to treat the other parts of our organization as clients?
As customers.
As customers.
Yes, exactly. That's the key message. Over and over again. You need a customer. You need to sell that somebody or group of people something. And you need to convince them to buy it willingly. Right? Willingly, that going back to the monopoly story, right? Find customers, sell them something, get that money, invest further to get more customers. That's how every business works, right? You invest in something initially, you sell, you get money, you put that money back into to build bigger business, and bigger business brings more money, and so on and so forth. That's how every single company works, or most of them. Now I'm saying, hey, why don't the teams work in that way as well? You can get budget initially, kind of. So think of it. Imagine that every team is a startup, right? You have an idea, I'm going to fund that. But there is a limit to how long I will be funding your project. There must be a plan, and that plan must include, okay, I will take your money, I will make this thing, I will earn money from that, I will give money back to you, and from there on I will be self-sufficient. I will be reinvesting the money that I'm earning. That's how startups work. Or that's not how startups work, but that's how we are kidding ourselves that startups work, right? Or they should be working. Anyways, I was just saying, yeah, create startups in your company. Sell something. And if you cannot sell, survival is optional.
Survival is optional.
Yeah, it's not mandatory. It's not guaranteed.
Really? I mean, every company that's ever been created now exists. Nothing's ever gone out of business. Did I say that out loud? Did I lose track of reality again? It's possible. So anyway, what do you think? Head over to the Slack workspace, look over in the podcast channel for episode number 276, and leave your comments there.
We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.